All right, students, welcome back to another Star Tutors live stream. Again, welcome back to another Star Tutors live stream. If you haven't been with us before, I'm Chase, and I will be guiding us through today, hopefully. See how that goes. If you guys have any questions before we get started, I'll just say that today we're going to be covering the October 2022 SAT reading test. October 2022 SAT reading. And we'll be trying to do that in real time. So I'm going to see if we can get a perfect score. This was the test at the time of filming. This is the test that was most recently released. So if you guys are taking an upcoming SAT exam, first and foremost, that's great. And secondly, hopefully this helps, right? One thing I will say, guys, is that we're going to break this up too. So if you guys are watching, we're going to break up this whole test into each individual passage. So look out for those videos to come. If you have not downloaded Star U, okay, that's our tutoring app, Star U. If you haven't downloaded it yet, please make sure that you do so. It's super, super important. I'll show it to you guys in the background of my screen here. But everything that we talk about during the lesson today, all of the strategies can be found on Star U. So if you feel like, oh man, he's just going too fast, I don't know what he's saying, you can always log back in, right, and check that out. So I'll pull that up here in just a second. So the home screen looks like this, right, guys? So if you guys see this, right, if you have access to this and you haven't downloaded it before, you can click Lessons and Practice Problems there on the home screen. Then click SAT Reading. And all this stuff, the strategies that we talk about, a lot of today is going to be about strategies, but you can go through this and just read about each of the strategies that are discussed, okay? So guys, thumbs up. If you're joining us live, thumbs up if that all makes sense. And again, it's Star U. I'll pin it to the top here. One of our tutoring coordinators just posted this. So let me see if I can pin this to the top of the board. All right, so that should be pinned. So guys, again, thumbs up if you're joining us live. Please please feel free to say hi as well. We will make sure that or I'll try to make sure that I'm answering any questions while you guys get going. But again, thumbs up if you guys know what we're doing. So if you've seen these before, again, we're going to start the timer. You get 65 minutes for the SAT reading section. If the strategies that you're seeing or hearing, if you want to slow them down, again, you can download Star U, and you'll see all the strategies in written form. So obviously it gives you guys an opportunity to read a little bit more about these without having to go through so quickly. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Is there anything else? I don't think so, guys. So again, we're going to take the test. All of these passages will be broken down into individual sections. If you have questions while we're going through this, please don't hesitate to comment. I can see most of the chat. Again, I won't be looking at it the whole time, otherwise I will run out of time almost certainly. But I can see some of your comments. So if you guys have any general questions and I can ask those or answer those as I go, I will. Thumbs up, guys, in the chat. For those that are watching live, thumbs up in the chat. You guys should see it, that you see where the live chat is. Just give like a thumbs up emoji or a good to go, something like that. So if you guys do want to ask questions, you know where that is. So again, thumbs up in the chat. You should be able to see that on the side. It should say hide chat or something along those lines in the top right-hand corner. I'll give you guys a second for that, just to make sure that we get started on the right note. And then, yeah, we'll get going here in just a second. Just for the record, guys, if you didn't see this before, hopefully you did when you logged in. This is for the October 2022 exam, so this is the test form. Below, in the details below the video, this is October 2022. We've also done the writing and language section already. And we've done the math no calculator section. So if you guys are interested in checking out those videos, you certainly can as well. And I guess without further ado, it looks like everybody's ready to go here. So without further ado, this is the October 2022 SAT reading test. You'll get 65 minutes to complete it. I'll try to explain things as I go, but if you haven't already seen, if you also want to see a video on the strategy, sorry, I know I'm going into this a little bit too much. But if you want to see SAT reading strategies in that video, SAT reading strategies, and more of a discussion about why we're doing these and how I'm doing these the way, or why I'm doing these the way that I am, you guys can check out that video. I just posted that in the chat as well. All right. So without further ado, let's get the timer ready to go, ready to start. And let's get going here. There we go. Okay, perfect. All right, guys. So one of the first things that for those that have seen this before, you know that I'm a huge believer in reading the passage. Read it thoroughly. Don't worry about the time, and make up the time on the questions. You'll see what I mean here. I've come to inquire if you've worked for me. That is, if my performance pleased you before. A deliberate prompt, right? So that is my performance. Looking for, like, fishing for compliments. I didn't want to be hired because of my need or his kindness or my talent to be the reason he wanted me back. Okay, so a little bit of fishing, indeed, was all he offered. But now I feel spend months. New project plans that I wrote left up in symmetrical curves. A Byzantine chapel for the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago next year. 4 times bigger than the Paris Exposition Universelle. In 1893, Louis Tiffany, is that like Tiffany's, like the Tiffany chandelier? Like Tiffany, the company? Anybody know? Not that it really matters for the purposes of this, but too swung over his arms. I just think because the Paris Exposition, I think Tiffany, there's something there, maybe. Senses open palms from an air. There's massive carved mahogany exhibit tables, see sketches and watercolors. The infancy of Christ and Botticelli's Madonna and Child, which is set out. Here's me as a former employer, an artist whose company later became famous. But yeah, there it is, stained glass lampshade. Okay, so it is Tiffany. Guys, the reason I went back there, just so you know, this is key. Can everybody give me a thumbs up in the chat? Or if you're watching live, give me a thumbs up. If you're not watching live and you're watching later, watching the recording, this will be available immediately after the live stream. But I didn't really understand what was going on there. I just want to be clear about why I went back here. I even asked, right, does anybody know who this Tiffany is, if that was actually the Tiffany? And it turns out it is. I should have probably done this before. It's up to you. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. But if you read this little blurb, sometimes it puts the setting right into place. Thumbs up, guys, if you do that. You read that little blurb before, but it just puts it into perspective on what's going on. So it sounds like, right, the narrator's meeting with her former employer. So Tiffany is the former employer, and this must be like a young kind of apprentice who's the narrator. Huge undertaking, how richly fortunate. Surely there would be opportunity for me to shine. Practically hopping from side to side of me. Down one large water column to another end of the Persian carpet, each one a precise, fine rendering of what he wanted the window to be. Gracious, you've been on fire. Go slower. Give me a chance to admire each one. So gracious, right? Unrolled the largest water column and 8-foot mosaic. 8-foot mosaic on the altar with a pair of peacocks shining by great light. Standard Christian icon of crown thorns and a shimmering regal headdress for God the King. A regal headdress. I like to circle adjectives that stand out. Regal, right? Regal shimmering regal headdress. You can kind of picture this. It just helps me stay focused, so that's something that you guys can take into account as well. But shimmering regal headdress. And then on top of that, like when we go through this, guys, the chances, who knows if it's going to show up in the question. Sometimes I say this and then it doesn't show up and it's kind of embarrassing, right? So I don't know if it's going to show up in the questions. But like he transformed standard Christian icon of a crown of thorns into a shimmering regal headdress, right? For God the King. That's such a such a big sentence, right? That the chances something about that shows up in the questions is very. And if you focus on that, then that question, which otherwise would take you maybe 20 seconds to go back and reread, could take you 5 seconds because you just remember it. Like as an example, it might say like. And I don't want to. Again, I don't know what the questions are going to ask me, but it could ask about that. And then if those sentences stick out in your mind, that's where you're making up time on the questions. Thumbs up, guys, if that makes sense for those watching live. Astonishing how we could get mere watercolors so deep and saturated, so like lacquer, that they vibrated together as surely as chords of Greek. The great church pipe organ. A lot of imagery and similes here. Even then, the hues, warnings, that are richness, the peacocks next to emerald green, and sapphire blue. We can picture that as the peacocks, the tail feathers in vermilion, Spanish, Florida gold, right? To feel the back. So, guys, the reason I'm just going to skip. This is another reading technique that you can use. If you're really interested for a speed read, right? If you guys are speed reading, you want to make up that time. So I gotta do the timer over here. Yeah, guys, website is posted. So Star U, if you want to see all the strategies, you can download our free app, Star U. You can learn more about these. So absolutely, it's pinned to the top of the page. I mentioned at the beginning of the video too, if you back it up. But guys, one thing with speed reading, a strategy, and this isn't actually covered, so it's a good thing to talk about. One thing that you can do with speed reading is if you know all of this stuff is going to continue to just be imagery, right? This is about timed reading, right? Timed reading. To feel the coolness of the blue glass. When you know all this stuff is talking about the peacock, if you're really into the imagery, then of course you can continue to read it. But in this case, because it's timed, we're probably not that into it. Thumbs up if that makes sense. So you can probably skip down, right, to somewhere like to chip the gigantic jewels maybe for the crown. But we can kind of disguise, right, that this is going to, or talk about that this is still talking about this beautiful image. We can always come back to that quickly if necessary, but probably don't need to read every single word of that line. Read everything but the glass before me and make it of it something resplendent. I can trust my words, too much eagerness, serious eyes, and good health. Okay, eagerness, right? This kind of apprentice or employee doesn't want to sound too impressed, but at the same time is very impressed. It would be Christian, by the way, does that make sense on Star U? It's pinned to the top. I should have checked in there. Symbolized eternal life in Byzantine art. Their flesh was thought to be incorruptible. Flesh thought to be incorruptible. What a lucky find for you, that convenient tidbit of information. He chuckled, so I was on safe ground. Okay, so I think that they're just kind of messing around here. He tossed down more drawings, a marble mosaic altar surrounded by mosaic columns and baptismal font of opaque leaded glass and mosaic. The stone is the lid of the basin, an opaque leaded glass. I believe there was nothing short of love and showed me a sign of imagine it reduced in size and made a translucent glass instead. Once you breathe out its heat, with a lampshade. So, windows saying, look under a peacock. Just think where that could go. Okay, so I think this is fiction. It was written in 2011 when we read that little blurb. Basically, it sounds like this employee, right? And you see this sometimes in literature. If you guys are big readers, that will help you tremendously on this test. But if you're big readers, you see this in literature where we get that sense of like, you know, there's something, they were the very known person, Tiffany's chandelier in this case, or Tiffany's lampshades, right, had got their idea from some, you know, unknown source almost. It sounds like what's going on here. Maybe it's true too, but they just mentioned the narrator, so I think that's probably what's happening. Okay, so let's go into these. If you guys have any questions, again, while we go, don't hesitate to post those in the chat. But it says, which choice best describes what happens in the passage? The narrator reflects on how behavior of another character has changed? No. Right? Does everybody see, right, the narrator struggles to understand the motivations of another character? I don't think so. It's definitely not A. The narrator gets your shared professional interest with another character. Probably. The narrator recounts the events that led to another character to support a project. No, it's not her project, right? I think this is C, because it ends up being Tiffany, the famous Tiffany. B and D, guys, one of the things I always preach is if you've read the passage, go into each question. You saw me do it there. That was a pretty good example of it. Go in and look for answers that you can definitely eliminate. So B and D were okay. I think the answer is C here. I'm pretty sure. Those B and D were okay, so I didn't feel like they were immediate elimination. The behavior of another character changed. That wasn't reflected at all. There was no real discussion about Tiffany's behavior. So I'm 99.9% sure it's not A. But the other two answer choices, if you don't know for sure, look for the best one, not the one that is 100% correct, or not one where you have some, you know, kind of preconceived notion on that. Sorry, I'm just checking the time, making sure that I'm already talking too much. According to the passage, Tiffany looks forward to the upcoming World's Columbian Exposition to share an opportunity to, I think, gain more popular recognition, right? Collaborate with other famous artists. I think it's A, because didn't Tiffany mention that? In the name of, right, Chicago Exposition. I think it's definitely A. Because he said in 1893 or whatever, we circled that. I like to circle dates because those seem to come out. Thumbs up if you also do that. The narrator indicates that Tiffany informs her of his new projects by Showing a series of plans for stained glass windows he intends to construct. Maybe. Presenting several finished stained glass. What is the time here? Glass windows describing into detail. Maybe. Water coating. I don't think it's. I think it's stained glass, right? Displaying a chart. It's definitely not displaying a chart. I think presenting several finished. Yeah, so guys, so this is another great example of elimination. Both of these mention stained glass, and I think that's right. I think it's presenting plans, right? Could get mere watercolors so deep. Yeah, so I think it's plans. I think this one's A, but this is a harder question. So does everybody see that? Thumbs up, guys, if you see kind of why I'm choosing A there. This is like discussing the plans, and so it could be, and then let's see, what are the line numbers here? 34, maybe. Let's see, 34, maybe. No, that's not, it's not 34. Lines 46 through 47. Oh, maybe 47, 69 to 79. Just think where that could go. Showing a series of plans. I think it's one of these two. I think it's D. Just think where that could go, right? Series of plans, kind of. One thing I will say, guys, is on these double questions, one really key helpful hint on these double questions, we've actually made a video specifically on these, is always try to answer this one without ever thinking about the line numbers. There are so many questions that look just like number 3 where you don't have a follow-up evidence-based question, right? We've already seen that. Look at number 2, right? That's number 2 is just like number 3. They're asking something specific about the passage, but it doesn't have a follow-up evidence-based question. Does that make sense? So there's no reason necessarily to go back on number 3 before we try to answer it first. 38, line true. Let's see, true. The thorns replaced by large jewels in true Tiffany style. So true Tiffany style, I think, is like in characteristic, right, or loyal. I think it's got to be one of these two. I'm going to say characteristic style. Does everybody see that? Anybody have any questions on that one? Again, don't be afraid to ask questions for those that are tuning in live. If you're not live, please make sure, we got to keep moving here. I'm getting behind time, but please make sure that you pause the video at any point and ask questions. Characteristic, true Tiffany style, right? It's characteristic of Tiffany. I don't think it's loyal. Although loyal makes kind of sense in that one, I don't think it makes sense in terms of like plugging it into that sentence. Context and there is reference to a pipe organ, mainly serves to to create water from illustrated perception of the vividness of colors. Provide an example of an image depicts. I think it's C. Right, illustrated perception of the vividness. That's where they're talking about all that stuff. Again, we can come back, but does everybody see that? I think it's back that they vibrated. Yeah, together as surely as chords. It's definitely C. That one's not too hard. I shouldn't need to go back, but now I'm starting to question myself. There's remarks in lines 53 and 58. The rest is expressing the narrators 53 through 59. Let's just go back quick. I can trust my voice not shifting a few years as citizen. Okay, this is where the narrator, right? Do you see, guys? This is where the narrator and Tiffany are kind of going back and forth. Envious resentment. No, it's definitely very positive. Long-standing puzzlement. No. Good-natured is why I left out open admiration. I think it's B. Good-natured amusement. Everybody see that? But again, on this question, without having to go back, because I remember that line, on that question, it was without a doubt a positive tone, right? They were laughing at each other, and the narrator even said, like, sigh of relief or something like that. So even if you didn't know where that was or didn't want to go back, you could eliminate envious resentment and puzzlement because those are going to be negatively toned, right? Thumbs up, guys, if that makes sense. Anybody tuning in? Thumbs up. Context description lines 66 through 68 can be the overall characterization of Tiffany. 66 through 68. Look at it with at his love of the importance made it perfect. Push the warmth to express this. Yeah, I think, right, guys, does everybody see this in terms of it's got to be emphasizing the intensity of his excitement? Let me keep going. It can illustrate for the passage that nearest talents include an ability to devise imaginative names for the colors of glass. Probably not. Right? Enhance an existing idea, right? Improvising technical innovations for artworks, potentially, right? Does everybody see on number 9 the potential, right? The enhance an existing idea was remember I said this at the end. It's not devise imaginative, authoritative critiques. It's not authoritative, right? Wrong tone word, not authoritative. So once you see that word authoritative, if it's not in line with the tone, eliminate it. Creates detailed sketches on which larger artworks are based. Now it's definitely B, and I think this one, oddly enough, I think they've given us 2 at the end, right? This one was 69 through 72. Once you figure out how to secure the piece in a dome, that could be the method in the shape of a lampshade wrapped around windows. If this hit, I think it's definitely. I was struck by a tantalizing idea. Yeah, I definitely think it's D. It's at the end here. Right. So oddly enough, it doesn't happen. Again, that might be wrong, but that doesn't happen too often where they give evidence. I got to get going. Now, one thing I'll say, guys, is the reason I'm not totally overwhelmed or worried. I know because of practice, I know that passage number 1 always takes me the longest. It's the narrator passage, right? So it's always the narrative, the story, and it's always hard. You even saw me, I had to go back to the little mini description. That doesn't tend to happen as much in the other passages. I love U.S. history, so passage number 4, or sometimes it's number 2, but usually number 4 doesn't give me a lot of trouble. I don't stress over that one. And then the science ones, if you can stay focused while you read, are going to be so factual once you get to the questions that you should be in pretty good shape. Does that make sense? Everybody relatively secure with that? Okay, so let's keep going here. And again, that's why you don't have to immediately worry about time. Any questions, guys? Again, if you're watching live, don't hesitate to ask questions. We'll make sure that we post this. It's going to be posted as a recording. So if you do have any questions, you can always pause the video if you're watching the recording. And as well, we're going to post each individual passage by themselves as we go through it. So let's see here. Comparative recent studies suggest that although industrialized nations may have benefited from larger cities, the same is true for the rapidly urbanizing areas of the developing world. So urbanizing areas, especially though there really might be too much urbanization too quickly. Okay, so right? This is like the industrial revolution is happening for certain countries right now. The studies by Susan Frank take a close look at the actual connection between city size and income. Their initial study from last year in relation between economic development and average metropolitan area size across the world between 1960 and 2010. Which were listed in the including national population size, physical land areas, okay, good. The size of cities. The median city in high-income countries, so 500 to 650,000 people, big but not huge. They quadrupled, so it went from like 20% to 400%. Countries, 14 at that time. Okay, so the big switch. Okay, so this is basically saying, guys, right, for developing countries, that there's some significant economic downsides to growing too quickly. 2.3% decrease for 0.7% increase. The latest study, the researchers found that developing nations tend to get bigger bang for their buck. Small and medium-sized cities for developing nations. You can just see the most economic information. 500,000 people or less. Bigger cities tend to have more positive income. Larger country. 10 million inhabitants produce a nation only if the total population is 20.5 million or more, according to the study. So it's a huge country, right? If it's a huge country, population-wise, the United States, China, India, right? Those countries, if they have a big, huge city, 10 million or more, it actually is a benefit. But if it's not in a huge population country, it doesn't help, is what they're saying. Okay, this makes sense. Bigger, more developed countries are more likely to play host to knowledge-based industries that require urban. There are some reasons why megacities often fail this. Urbanization is always associated, so it's got to be. It's a hybrid, right? It's a balance. Thumbs up, guys, if that makes sense. For anybody that's joining us, thumbs up if that makes sense. So it's a balance here with what we're reading. Additionally, the globalization has severed the historical connection between cities, local agriculture. All right, guys, so this is a great example, right? I don't have to read the end, urbanization, or maybe I should, but let's see. The result is that the connection between large city growth is much more tenuous, producing a troubling new pattern of urbanization without growth. Again, they have a graph here. You can see that even though I was so slow on the last passage, taking almost a little over or almost 15 minutes, you'll notice that that passage took me way less time to read. What I want to say about this, and this is a very important piece of information for all of you, right? And I'm talking obviously as the timer is running here, so I got to watch it. But I know that I'm going to make up time because I have practiced enough, and all of you can do this. This is about hard work, not about some crazy ability, right, or of reading ability. It's about knowing where your slower passages are on the SAT reading section and where your faster ones are. I know because of practice that number one is always going to take me the longest. It always has on average, without a doubt. It's far and away the one that takes me the longest. But I know that if I take my time and I still try to answer those questions accurately, I'm going to make up time because I like the science and historical passage to begin with. And I know that those aren't going to be that hard to understand if I'm focused while I read. Okay, again, thumbs up. That's a huge, huge tip, strategy, trick. If you're trying to improve your SAT reading section, is to know where you're great, right? Know what you're doing right and wrong. Know, all those kinds of things will help you because most importantly, and you'll see this, I've been talking for a minute now and I'm not worried at all. It will help you stay calm. That's the key, is that if the more knowledge, the more understanding you have of the format, it will help you stay calm. Very, very important. Okay, so number 11, the main purpose of the passages. Right? Again, guys, thumbs up. If you're watching live, thumbs up if that makes sense. If you guys have any questions that are watching live, don't hesitate to post those in the live chat. Otherwise, make sure that you post those below. The main purpose of the passage is describe the cause and consequences of the phenomenon. Maybe. Propose a new solution. No, they weren't proposing a new solution. They were just studying it. Question whether research. Nope, it wasn't questioning it. Critique the methodology. No, it wasn't critiquing. I don't love A, but I think that's the only one that isn't the definite no. They didn't propose a new solution, right? It was just describing the study. They didn't question the study, right? It was just, again, describing it. They haven't gotten to the point of questioning it yet, and they didn't critique anything. They definitely didn't do that. It's definitely not D for number 11. Thumbs up, guys. If you're right, elimination is so important here. Which choice best supports the idea that it can do? Which choice best supports the idea that it can do unique circumstances? I think it's going to be like right here, right? Well, advanced nations. Do we have that somewhere? 32 through 35. Well, developing countries, advanced nations benefit from having large cities. Developing nations do not. I think, right? Do you guys see that for number? It's definitely not A. I'll say that. I'm a little confused because 32 starts in the middle of a sentence. Let me go back here real quick. Study from last year's relationship between economic development and agriculture. True robust variables. Sorry guys, now I'm taking too long on this one. I kind of like this one better. It's not going to be D because those two are too closely related. I don't even have to. I mean, I guess I could look at D, guys, but I don't think it's going to be D. I think it's B now. I originally thought C, but I didn't even look at B. Now reading B, right, because it's to distort comparisons because you're controlling. It seems like they're controlling for so many variables, so they recognize right up front that they have to control a lot here in this study, or it's not going to look right. It's not going to be correct, right? I think it's B, but I'm going to star 12 and get back to it if I have time. Based on the passage, which choice best describes those who do frequent reviews, both the first and second studies? Second secrets and minor and the research. What was this? I don't remember the latest study from them to get a bigger bang for their buck. Oh, so this is talking about bigger cities. Oh, it's just different, right? Where is it? I think it's C. It's not a right. Maybe you guys feel this differently, but I gotta keep going with time. But it's not D, right? It's not offers a more negative, and I don't think it corrects a minor error. I don't think it confirmed, right? I think it's C. This is the one talking about the economic, right? I mentioned when I was talking about India, China, United States. that big, huge population countries are okay having big, huge cities. That it doesn't quite work in that way. I think it's that should be right. So but I got to keep going. As used in line 29, feature most nearly means 29 feature as a necessary feature as a necessary component. Definitely component. That one's easy. Yeah, necessary component of it. Okay, most usually inferred from the passage that a mega city's economic impact in a country is greater in countries larger physical land area depending on the type of companies. No, relatively equal for our developing countries and high income countries. Greater in countries. Was it greater in countries? I thought it was greater in countries with more population. Am I crazy? I don't know, guys. I'm gonna skip these two. So 15 and 16, I'm gonna come back to just because I want to make sure that I stay relatively close to time. It's definitely it's definitely not C because they talk about that like at length, right? Neutralized by the economic cost. I don't think it's D. I think it's either A or B, but I'm not sure. So I'm gonna come back to 15 and 16 because they give me line numbers. That's one way it can be very helpful to have these line numbers. But that one I don't want to get or feel too overwhelmed. I suppose. Maybe for the sixth paragraph, 52 through 60. There's several. Okay, so it's talking about provided develop a claim about the effect of large cities and various probably 18, right? Let's look at 18 quick. I'm running low on. I want to make sure. We'll shoot what line is that? Let's see. Tenders producing a troubling new pattern. Is that the word? Producing, creating, right? Let's go back in here. Sixth paragraph. Provide an overview of existing. No. Local claim. I think it's B. Why they said the theory about city size. No, it's not future research. That is this research. I think it's B. I got to keep going, but I think that one's B. According to the graph, during what range of years did the median city population size in developing initially surpass that of high? Chart. So let's see. Looks like it's right here. I don't know that, but it looks like 1990, guys. Does everybody see kind of where that happens? 1990 to 1995, right? And guys, when they're talking about the comparison questions, just look right to see where it is, right where they cross on the graph. That's why I immediately my eyes went there. I was supported by the graph. The median population in developing countries more sharply. That's true, right? That has to be true. And they talk about that, guys. The median population of cities in developing countries grew more sharply than did that of cities in high. They say that, right? 4 times versus 20%. So I don't even know if I have to go back. More than half the countries with the largest average city size were high-income countries. Maybe by the graph. I think it's A. I gotta keep going. I'm gonna come back to 20 if I can. I said all that stuff, right, guys? Now I'm running low. Thumbs up, guys, if you see what I'm saying there. How much time do I have left? Yeah, I did catch up a little bit though. The good news is there. I might have missed one, but I did catch up a little bit, and I only say that because I was at like 5 minutes behind time. Now I'm at whatever. I should be about 39. Now I'm at 36. So I'm only 3 minutes behind time. So these ones, by the way, the passage A, what we're gonna do when we see the A's and the B passages. We're going to read A, then we're going to complete A passages for A. Let me just see if anybody has any questions. No questions yet, guys? Again, if you do have questions for those that are just joining us, because I see that there's a number of you that are coming online, just joining us, please make sure that you post those in the live chat. Okay. But passage A, passage B questions. I'll show you how to do these, but by and large, right, we're going to try to do all of passage A first, then do the questions for A, then all of passage B, and I'll show you where that kind of cutoff tends to happen, right? So the brains of humans are conspicuously larger than the brains of other apes, human-specific genetic factors. Since humans put in chance to brains roughly a third of human size, the human genome has undergone roughly 15 million changes. 6 years ago, census gene called this for the gene that's a decision regarding when and how many neurons to make. I don't know what this is talking about, right, guys? So I'm just trying not to get too overwhelmed by all these numbers. That part isn't going to matter. They're not going to ask you something really specific. Thumbs up, guys, if this makes sense. They're not going to ask you something really specific about not 2CH2NL. So again, thumbs up. That's not going to matter, right? Just replace that with another word. Appear to be located in chromosome 1 near a region like the okay. Seem to be a dud. Okay, so this once promising candidate seemed to be a dud, right? Not good. A dud is not good. It wasn't in the region that they needed it to be. We were downhearted. That'll change with the next version 38. This iteration, 3 versions of the last 3 years. Copy-paste what we call a series of genetic accidents. Okay, so this is saying that not in version 37 of of the times that it's multiplied. How many times did they say that it's gone million? Right? Was it millions? 15 million changes. So there's some version of this. Genes played a role in beefing up. Beefing up means getting bigger, right? Beefing up human brain size. Okay, so let's see. What does it indicate true of the human genome? It's gone through a large number of changes over time. Hopefully that was pretty clear, right, with 15 million times. So I think it could be A. It's nearly tripled in size in the last few million years. No, it was not until, that was when it started. It contains many more genes than the genomes of non-human. I don't think it's many more, right? It's 3. It retains only a few of the genes. No, it's not. I think it's A. It's gone through a large number of changes. 15 million, I think, was the number. Based on passage 1, what concept was the initial interests? What was the reason? They knew it was central to early brain development. Vital decisions. So I think probably something with vital decisions, right? Different species. No, it wasn't that. Single gene type. Gene typically has varying functions depending on where it's located. I don't think so. Maybe D. I think that's just getting at the point that if they're related to one another, they were talking about it as making vital decisions, right? And I think that has to do with it. Does everybody remember that? Am I crazy? Does everybody remember when they talked about? And I didn't even know, right? But they said located. That scientists knew was central. Does everybody remember that, guys? Like right here, controls vital decisions. Is that one of the line numbers? Yeah, so right there. This is a great example, guys. I went back and I tried to answer number 22 before answering 23. Okay, again, thumbs up. That's a really helpful hint for all of you, but it can be very helpful in the sense that you're then not thinking about the line numbers. What happens so often on these evidence-based questions is that we start thinking about the line numbers. Again, I'm making the assumption that those are right, but hopefully they are. It seems to make sense that those would be right. Because it discusses that, but again, as you guys go through this, you want to continue to be thinking about this idea that how do you get to a point where you can answer 22 before answering 23, and then 23 becomes pretty easy because you're already looking there for the answer to 22, right? It's more of like a confirmation on that sense. Okay, so then it says which choice best describes passage number 2. Guys, as we go through passage 2, we got to be thinking to ourselves, right? We got to be thinking. Okay, sorry, I was looking for. As we go through passage number 2, or when we see passage number 2 in the questions, that's our cue to go back and read passage number 2. Again, that's a huge. If you don't do that already, please make sure that you do that going forward, because you can answer those first 3 questions without having passage 2 be any effect on you. You don't have to read them all at the same time. Okay, and that can really help with your timing. All right, so passage 2, modern humans. Jane, welcome. Thanks for the thumbs up. If you have any questions, guys, anybody that's logging on, watching live, please make sure you answer those. If you're watching the recording, please make sure that you pause at any point and ask questions in the comment section. One of our teachers or tutors, or potentially another student, will definitely respond to those questions. Modern humans have brains that are more than 3 times larger than our closest living relative. Scientists don't agree on when and how this might took place. For new estimate, 94 hominin fossils show that average brain size increased over the past 2 million years. Primary evolution of larger brains and virus simulations for the extraction of new larger brain species and extinction of smaller brain ones also played a part. Okay. Doing his colleagues compared public research and school line. 94 Boston, 13 different species. Australopithecus, right? Lucy, I think, was a famous Australopithecus, right? They found the fossil record. Homo erectus. Overlap with that among the humans. So Homo erectus 5,000 years ago was when it began to overlap. Clade level. The group system. Average brain size increased gradually over the 9 years. Larger brains are the peace foundation for us. Okay, so this one's basically saying that it doesn't seem like it's a gene, right? It contributes to the clad level pattern. What was that again? Sorry. You said that when the species were kind of groups the same. Okay, so it just kept going, right? With me. Okay, so recruit larger. Okay, which of the choice from brain studies may help answer important questions beyond evolutionary biology? Beyond evolutionary biology. Important we got here. In realms beyond brain size research may help answer questions. So let me just go back here. I'm going to reread 47 through 72 and just see if I can answer that. Guys, does everybody see what I'm trying to do here, guys, as we go back here? From, full volumes of 94 being able to release unambiguous human ancestors. Primarily evolution of larger brain, but they just have new larger brain species. I think it should be in those lines, right? What is those lines? I don't know, guys. This one's hard. It's definitely not A and B. I think it's later. I think it's one of these two. I'm going to come back to that one again. Don't spend too much time, right? Because we can always make that time back up on other questions. So let's see. 25 asks us about 53. Trend in 53. Shows that the trend was caused, right? So trend, I think in that case, is just the typical idea of trend, the progression, right? Everybody see that, right? So if you start to define the word before, that seems like a pretty straightforward one. Main purpose of the 5th paragraph of passage 2, 73 through 81. 3 million years. Okay, so 73. Per term, introduced, indicate the original objectives, summarize the conclusions. I think it's right. If anybody thinks summarize right, because it says the research found. Anybody have any questions on that? We're running behind time. It's like 25 and a half minutes. Context of passage 2, the references the football coach mainly serves to create a humorous image and establish an restricts the pattern doing this thing observed in the study. Probably that one. I don't think it's humorous. Maybe though, right? It could be humorous. I don't think that's too. Suggest that team they may offer unexpected. No. I think it's B. I think 27 is more straightforward than I'm trying to make it. Describes the key difference between the passages. Refers only to data derived from computer simulations. It wasn't right. This one wasn't computer simulations for passage 1. That one immediately stands out as a no-go. Addresses genetic analysis of the brains of human ancestors. No, I think they're both right. Primate, maybe. No, it's not multiple. No, small scale genetic change influence brain evolution. I think it's D. Right, small scale genetic changes is that one gene. Anybody remember that, right? Both state that the modern human brain is about 3 times larger than the brains of, I think it was chimpanzees, wasn't it? I don't know why I'm going back here. I shouldn't have to, but. Chimps, yeah. Chimpanzees. That's one I should have remembered, guys. Definitely B. Anybody else see that one? And doing that in passage obvious is close to the meaning which of the following. Obvious. Passage 2, line 58. What are they talking about here? I gotta make up some serious time. And then evolution. It says one of the most obvious traits that makes us human. It's one of the most like repeated, maybe. Is that one of the words? One of the most relevant. I mean, one of the most relevant. It's got to be C, right? We might have to come back down because that's time, very time efficient. How much time we got left? Okay, we're on to the next one. Okay, give me 1 second. Now that I didn't realize we were moving on to the last part of this. Notorious, conspicuously, notoriously. It might be A. It's either A or C. It's not repeatedly now. It's not vital. I'm gonna come back. It could be C. So I'm just gonna highlight that one, right? Always come back and look at that. C. Question. Okay, for too long now. Now I gotta hustle, guys. So I might not be able to talk. Thumbs up if everybody's still following along. Following along live. Thanks for staying tuned in. I'm way behind on time, so I might have to fly through one of these passages. This one's coming from 2008, Australian Human Rights Commission, Aboriginal Australians. Okay, for too long now. Disadvantage. Housing. Any categories to action of government, any outcome that limits the accountability and responsibilities of government. Okay, this is important. Equal goods, human rights. What the point of the recognition or what achievement? So it's like saying why do we spend so much money on this initiative when we don't even know what came of it? Any accountability. So lacked any accountability. The practical, right? This is practical, but is it really like are we really getting anything for this? Look back at the past 5 years and figure practical. Without engaging with indigenous peoples, fundamental flaw as passive recipients, right? Giving up would be so that they're capable of utilizing human rights as a tool for best practice policy development and accountability mechanisms. The opposition minister, the leader, the prime minister, the leader of the opposition, ministers for all the others signed the close the gap in health inequality, which set out how this community would be met. Government, one of the things to do. Okay, I'm going to skip those just to try to make up some time. I can always come back, right? It commits all of these organizations, government, among other things, but this is the commitment that they've made. So if I need to go back, if they mention commitment in one of those questions, I can go back. This is a way to potentially make up some time. These commitments were made in relation to health for the 2010 poverty and marginalization of Spanish challenges. The first okay, so I think I understand. One central theme of the passage explaining the racism and national health outcomes. Maybe guys, with this passage, this is a hard one to read and stay focused on, especially if you're not. I happen to like history, right, and political policy. So this one was easier for me to understand, but this is a great passage. Number 4, thumbs up if this might be you, right? But number 4 tends to be a little bit more difficult than the other passages to stay focused for most students. So think about that, right? Expanding legal rights. Thumbs up, guys. Again, thumbs up if that makes sense. I don't think it's A. Human rights should generally receive more funding. No, the more funding thing was like kind of a back burner. Human rights should be used as a framework for policy. Maybe that's in the last. Whoops. That wasn't my timer. That was my phone timer. Sorry. I don't know why that went off. My phone alarm. Human rights should be focused as used as a framework for government policy on indigenous issues, focusing. Just make sure that's not a problem here. I got all sorts of stuff going on. I'll keep going. Human rights. That's by the way. Don't bring your phone to the SAT. That's a good reminder for that exact reason. If your phone alarm goes off, you get kicked out of the SAT. So don't. So make sure that it's silenced. Good reminder. An unfortunate good reminder. I think it's C. They mentioned that in the last passage. I got to keep moving here. Okay, guys. Thumbs up if that has ever happened to you. According to your comma, the government's failure to link its initiatives on health initiatives. Negative attitudes, no. It undermines efforts to standardize, maybe. Certainly not this one. Corrects the pattern of government abusing their authority. No, abusing is not what allows the government. Yeah, it's definitely D, right? This is the answerable part, right? They talk about that pretty at length in the left side of that passage. There's no accountability. You can spend as much as you want, but if you don't have accountability, what's that really going to get you? Comma indicates that in the past, history and government stress, which aspects related to the willingness is shown to meet with indigenous leaders. Definitely not, right? Everybody remember that. Thumbs up, guys, if you remember that. The regret is expressed for injustice committed against the peoples. No, I don't think it's expressed that. The improvements is made. No, it's definitely D, right? It's stressed. Indicates that in the past, it's the government wants to keep talking about how much money they've spent on it, but that doesn't mean that they've actually done anything, right? That's a huge central point of it. Line 30, decide. 30, decide. The fact is that there's been no simple way of being able to decide whether the progress made to determine, right? That one should be pretty straightforward. Guys, does everybody see that though? With those last couple questions, that's a great example of if you have a general. That's why timing that's why reading the passage can be so critical, because you can move through these questions pretty quickly if you have a pretty thorough understanding of generally what's going on. Because on difficult questions, the answer choices are kind of one of one. Anybody feel that way? Anybody see that? So based on the passage, comma would most likely agree that programs that have better chances to be if the Australian government empowered indigenous communities, maybe, right? That's the part talking about why haven't they actually addressed, why haven't they talked with any indigenous communities, funded such programs? No, it's definitely not. A better chance because they have funded the programs, modeled such programs on healthcare initiatives. I don't think so. What is in your research for the previous? No, I don't think it's that one. I think it's empowered indigenous to assist, right, in devising such programs. That's the part. And this is talking about, I know where that is. passive recipients, right? So it's either right there or in March, the leader signed a statement of intent, so that the committee. I think it's this one, right? Passive recipients. I think it's right. Does everybody see this again? Everybody remember this? We talk about passive recipients here, and that's not what that policy has not been good policy in the past. Okay, so beginning with the 9th paragraph. I'm still a little flustered by that alarm going off. I can only imagine how it happens in the real thing. Lines 42 through 88, right? I think that's the focus of the past. It shifts from the actual, everyone remember this shift, from the actual like discussion about what the problem is to, no, my Apple Pencil's low. I got so many issues going on here, guys. Yeah, this one's definitely B. Criticism of the Australian government's past approach, right? That's kind of the entirety of the previous discussion to a more, right, to what they're doing now. The list in lines 55. And he serves to, I might have to do the rest of this with my finger, just writing with my finger. Develop ambitions mainly serves to. No, I think it's summarize actions, right? Develop. I think that's the bullet points. Enumerate similarities. Past agreements. No, I think it's B. Propose. Oh no, sorry. I think it's A. Summarize actions specified. Right. It's not including. I think that one's pretty straightforward. It's used in line 72. Targets. 72. And with benchmarks and targets. So benchmarks and goals. Maybe they use that. Perfect benchmarks and goals. Right, guys, if you try to define the word, sometimes the word becomes what you're thinking of in your mind. Does everybody see that? That's why whenever I see the word in the passage, I always try to say it to myself, what I think it would mean, and most of the time, right? Because these aren't typically too difficult in terms of those word choices. You can sometimes just get the right answer just based on what you say out loud. Based on the passage, Coleman regards the audience of the speech as being skeptical. I don't think skeptical, right? Will be held accountable. I don't think so, because they're moving in the right direction, poorly informed about the economic. Maybe doubtful of value. Doubtful of the value of its right. I don't think so. I think it's this overly tolerant, right? I gotta go check that, but I think they said that at the very end of this. Yeah, we need to lift our expectations. So what's that, like 84 to the end? I think it's 84 through 80. What was that? I think it's these last lines. Right, we need to raise our expectations. All right, just to make sure that I get through this, because I do have some questions I got to go back to as well. I'm going to try to speed through this. Anybody have any questions? Thumbs up, guys, if you're liking what you're seeing. If you haven't subscribed to the channel to this point, please make sure that you do so. But thumbs up if you're watching live. Any questions, please ask those. Unfortunately, I might have to do this passage without my Apple Pencil because it's running out of battery, which stinks. Scientists believe I should have known that. Scientists believe that means the corresponding of these bodies. Few answers of spectra that match those of natural objects. They're very rare. Some non-technical rates can match. Must come from other kind of parent body instead. Very mental oxygen. Just a sec, guys. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to see if I can get a charger for my Apple Pencil while the timer's running. I might be able to do it. I might be able to get through this while the timer's running. Come on. Come on. You guys can see the stress that comes with this sometimes. Okay, let's see if that worked. I'll have to do this without just my finger here. Let's see. Jeez. I'm all over the place here, guys. Iron lies in the core. I can't even write on this right now. So rocky, those are all rocky fragments. Survive in space. And last at least, so the asteroid belt at least 10 times longer than a rock fragment the same size. Okay, so rock fragment, now I hopefully have enough juice in my relatively rare, none have survived, so that's just statistical evidence for differentiated. What was best for me? All that remains. Closer to the sun. Gravitational, largely scattered some of these fragments of the asteroid. They don't apparent bodies of the primitive remains from the asteroid. Most of the objects survive, giving asteroid left today with a mixture of intact primitive bodies. Fragments of iron. Man, if you took this test, how many of you guys were overwhelmed by that passage? The main purpose of the passage, right? Anybody feel that way? Maybe the questions are really easy, but anybody feel like these were just like ridiculous questions? Discuss a study intended to explain the high number of meteorites on Earth. No, I don't think it's high number, right? Anybody? Thumbs up, guys, if you felt like this. We're running out of time, so I can't talk too much, but describe the video which prevention is form. Present a scientific debate about the prevalence of different. I think it's D. It's definitely not A or B because it's talking about differentiated asteroids the whole time, right? So I think it's D. As used in line 25, disrupt 25, making it harder to disrupt later while the iron core remains a single piece, making it harder to break apart or disrupt, fracture, probably, right? Fracture, you're breaking it. When you break something, you fracture it. Keep going. Collision erosion of the asteroid belt is sufficient to explain. Collision. Israel is going to find the best side. I want the answer that is far too currently done. I do remember them talking about this, right? They're talking about the Israel would expect to find. It's got to be B, right? And I remember when they talked about it, or at least I know the lines, right? You know, starting to make drawings. So many primitives survive, then when almost none of the differentiated ones. Right, it's got to be like 40. Does everybody see that? Guys, when I was reading this, I do remember them talking about that. Yeah, like it's right here. 40. It's definitely right before that. Right? Does everybody remember that? This is a really hard passage to read. I don't envy anybody that had to finish with this passage. But I think that one's got to be C because they talked about so basically the iron core, right? As the other rocks like broke off, why do we still have so many primitive, right? If that explanation doesn't make sense if that was the case. Lines 47 through 49. Man, we're running low on time. 47 through 49. So let me turn that. How do vessels are a single large crater on its surface? Mini series giant. Yeah, it's great, guys. As you look at this one, I think it's time. Anybody have any questions on that? Thanks, Jane, for the thumbs up, by the way. Highlight an anomaly that challenges an idea. I think that's exactly what I just wrote. We just present the hypothesis. Now I got to keep moving, but I think that's right. 53 contains 47, 53 through 40, 54. Now contains the terrestrial planets, formed closer to the sun. The terrestrial, so that now restrains, embodies, encompasses, I think, maybe, right, as we look at, so encompasses. Anybody have any questions, guys, by the way? We're running out of time. I think it's encompasses, right, because it's like encompassing the asteroid belt goes around the sun, and you're like, the terrestrial bodies are the Earth, Mars. According to the passage, Bacchus' colleagues explained the presence of iron fragments in the asteroid by assuming the fragments were remnants that were destroyed in collisions in the asteroid belt. Yeah, maybe. Created relatively close to the sun. How much time do we have? Created in the asteroid belt due to the gravity of large objects. That one could be it too. So they mention that somewhere. Formed on True. No, not formed on True. Formed in the region of the terrestrial not dimension. Iron fragments. The iron fragments are the differentiator. Gravity of light. Did they mention that? This one sounds right. I gotta kind of go with it. I think that might be right. Data in the table. Okay. Data in the table best support the conclusion that the majority of the mass in the asteroid as a whole is in asteroids that are the majority of the mass. All objects in the belt. All objects in the belt, but with a portion of the belt's total mass percentage. Contain carbon. Thought to be primitive, rich. Primitive. They're all primitive, right? So they're all primitive. Which is in the best way to do. Oh wait, no. Data in the table. Yeah, they're all primitive. Because that was like 50 or 14 and 11. They mentioned primitive. 4 largest asteroid belt objects are among 11 asteroid types. Table. 4 largest. Primitive. Type K. Where's type K? Oh, K. That contain carbon. Okay, wait, I think it's. Oh gosh. I think it's D, maybe. It looked like there were 2 carbon ones, but I'm running behind and I already skipped a couple questions. Taking the question to the most likely the monophysis imply which conclusion about type C asteroids? Type C asteroids contain carbon parents. They're primitive. They're a significant portion. All objects in the belt, but the 4 largest. They come from type S that melted. No, because they're primitive, right? They didn't melt down on these ones. The ones comprise a smaller portion of the asteroid belt in type V. No, it's definitely not these two. They've experienced fewer collisions than have. No, these are all primitive, right? So it's got to be D. I don't even know if that's true, but it's got to be D by default because they haven't melted off, right? This is a significant portion and they're primitive. So if you remember that from the passage, and talk about it at the end. Packs collisions with a more frequent than primitive formed in the asteroid belt. Leaving asteroids, mixture of intact primitive bodies and fragments of iron. I think that one is D. Is that the only one at the end? Yeah, I think this one is D as well. I think, but what's our time? Yeah, I think that's it. That's a really hard passage to finish with, though, guys. Let me see which questions we had left. Apple Pencil was dying. I don't think we're gonna get a chance to go back to any of the starred questions, unfortunately. So hopefully some of those were right. It's 23 and 24. Which choice from past provided the best evidence from the answer to the previous question? Oh, shoot. Oh, no, A, I got that one. Choice from dissociated and brain-sighted. I mean, I don't know, 24. I think there was another one that I had to go back to, unfortunately. It's my time. Shoot. Oh, yeah, I do remember this, though. I was going to go with B, I think. And then C. It wasn't A. I think it was B and C, wasn't it? Let me just check. There goes my time. Let me just see real quick. 48. What's that? What line was that? Was it 48 and 51? 48 and 51. I think that was where I was going with that. More likely to play host in knowledge-based India, knowledge-based industries. I think that's right. B and C. Those are the ones I was going to go with. So then, did I skip any others? Guys, thumbs up if this all made sense. Hopefully those answers were those ones that I starred, because I had to. Yeah, guys. Hopefully those answers that I starred were not overwhelmingly bad, because I did have to guess. I mean, I'm gonna have to guess on number 24. One thing I'll say about anytime you're gonna guess, guys, anytime you've chosen your letter to guess, and I apologize, right? Is any questions? Anybody have any thoughts or questions on that? I apologize on the delay in. Oops, let me stop this. Apologize for the delay in trying to get. Yeah, guys. So I apologize on the delay. Anybody have any questions on that? If you guys have questions as it comes through, let me know if you're live. Unfortunately, I did get a chance to eliminate on 24, so that gives me a kind of a 50-50 shot. I'll just take a guess at it right now. I don't remember this, so I'm just going to say D. I'm going to say C. Here's where I said C, right? Guys, as I looked at this, and this isn't necessarily helpful in any way, one thing that you can do is I chose C. I'll do this one in green as a guess. And I was going to say D, but then I remembered those last three answer choices were D, and I was only clued into that because these were also D. Now, I think those aren't starred. Thumbs up. This is a really helpful test-taking technique. Before we grade this, I saw that answer choices 25 and 22 were D. Now, it's probably going to be 24 is, ironically enough, going to be D. But then you want to choose answer choices that haven't appeared very often. Whenever you're going to guess, if there's any other, if I forgot, and maybe I did, let me just see if I skipped any other questions. The same kind of idea goes, right? I think I filled. There's maybe one other one, right? So at the very end of the test, did I get everything else, or did I answer everything else? Maybe I did. At the very end of the test, if you have to guess on letters, right? And we do a full video on this. In fact, that reading strategies video is really, really helpful for this. I wish I wouldn't have been talking so much at the beginning, because I did waste too much time, and then it didn't make the end of the video as helpful. But hopefully you guys got the gist of this. Any questions as we go through this? I'll pull up the answers for this test, and we can grade it here in a second. But hopefully that was helpful. One of the other things too, guys, is at the end, I had to get out. I had to leave the room to go get, to try to get this Apple, and I'll try to do this now, right? To get this Apple Pencil plugged in so that I had some access. So if you guys feel that way at all, if you guys have a situation where you're feeling stressed while you're taking the SAT reading test, try to do everything in your power, right? Try to do everything in your power not to let that affect the rest of the test. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? If I can plug this in here for a second. Guys, thumbs up if that makes sense. I'll pull up the answers. I'll pull up the test back, pull the test back up here in just a second. If you're ever looking for the answers, typically just plug in October 2022 SAT reading test. October 2022 SAT reading. Okay. Or just do October 2022 SAT answers. You should be able to find it. Again, I'll pull this back up. Thumbs up, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hopefully everybody found that to be helpful. Thumbs up if you found that to be helpful. Again, if you're ever searching for the answers for any of your practice tests, if you just search, generally if you find it, you can find it on Reddit too. You should be in pretty good shape for that. I should have enough power here to go through the rest of this. Sorry for the unfortunate delay here. But usually you can just find that. So while you guys, you haven't been able to see the test, I did find the answers. Let me find the reading test. Again, October 2022 SAT. Hopefully this works now. Okay, perfect, right? So I'm going to pull this back up. Okay, so I'm going to switch to red. Okay, and I'll grade it using these red markings. Again, there were a few. Anybody have any questions as well on that guessing technique? Don't be afraid to ask those. Otherwise, let's go through it. So this is the SAT October 2022 SAT reading test. If you have questions, please make sure that you pause the video and you can post those, right? Pause the video at any point and post those. Yeah, and I think that's it, right? If you liked what you saw today, guys, please look to subscribe to the channel. We always love it when we get new subscribers. Please help us spread the word. And again, hopefully you guys found these teaching methods helpful. We're gonna break up this entire test into the 5 different passages, so you'll be able to watch them individually. So look out for those videos to come probably tomorrow before the next SAT, so that you guys can watch those before that. But otherwise, hopefully everybody found this to be helpful, and you guys have a chance to subscribe. Please make sure you do that. And without further ado, let's go through it. I felt good on the early questions. So number 1 is C, number 2 is A, number 3 is A. I felt good on this passage, but I also took forever. I hope I didn't miss one. 4 is D, 5 is B, cool. 6 is C, 6, C, B, D, B. C, B, D, B. And 10 was D. Okay, so yeah, again, I got those ones right, but I did probably take a little too long, or at the very least, I took too long talking after the first passage. That was not smart. But let's see. Number 11 was, A. 12, B. 13 was C. Whoops. Great. 14 was D. I felt pretty good about this passage too, I think. Oh no, 15 and 16. 15 was B, 16 was C. So these guys, both of these ones were right. 15 and 16 were both right. I don't know, again, that came down. This is a great example. 15 and 16, if you go back and you watch passage number 2, you'll notice that that's what I was originally feeling. I felt like B and C were the ones, because I remember reading something about that. It just popped into my mind. But that's where timing can throw you off. I had to skip 15 and 16 because that's when I started to realize I was way behind time for spending too much time for the first passage. And that's where you can kind of lose the whole test, just because you're unfortunately worried about something that you don't need to be worried about, right? Like, just stay focused, see if you can answer those questions. Moving on from those questions is only going to stress you out more. So stay calm, get into a rhythm again of answering questions, right? Try to stay as focused as possible. I didn't do a great job of that on 15 and 16, but that's kind of the helpful point of some of these videos, is that, it's not just helpful because you get to watch me take these tests. It can also be helpful because, you see that it's still stressful for me and it's not perfect every time. And hopefully that gives you some sense of like, hey, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just need to battle through this, right? Thumbs up, guys, if that makes sense. So 17 was B, 18 was B, 19 was C, and 20 was A. So to this point in the test, I did feel pretty good because I actually felt hopefully pretty good about this next passage as well. Overall, I know I did guess on 24, but hopefully that makes sense. Again, as we go through this, guys, again, you want to make sure that you're focusing on timing. So 21 was A, 22 was D, 23 was A, 24 was C. Guys, what I just said about 24 is so critical. The reason I guessed C on 24, I just want to be very clear that the reason I guessed C on 24 was because I just quickly glanced, and this by coincidence, that these 2 answer choices, when you go back, if you watch the video, these 2 answer choices were the ones that were populated on the screen, and those happen to be D. Let me make sure that 25 is also D, so I got the 25 right. I also remembered by coincidence, and in the last 3 questions might not all be D, but I felt like of the last 3, 2 of the 3 I felt pretty confident with. Number 49, I think I was a little off. But as you go through this, if you realize, hey, I've selected D a lot, or that's the top of mind, go with the other answer, especially, and this is where elimination can be so helpful, especially if you only have C and D left over. And coincidentally, that's probably what allowed me to get 24 right, and potentially, right, get more and more questions right. So let's see, 26 CBDB, 26 CBDB, 30 was A, 30 was A. I never got a chance to go back to that one, but conspicuously apps right. I still think this is the best, is closest to the meaning. I still felt like C wasn't too bad, but I got a little lucky there. Again, that's where elimination can help you so much. Let's keep going. 31. Whoops, wait, we didn't grade the rest of those because I got too excited about that. Oh, no, we did. That was 30. 30 was A. Was that right? Yeah, 30 was A. 31. Starting with 31 was C, D, D, C, A. C, D, D, C, A. Great. 36 was C. 37 was B. 38 was A. 39 was B. D, D. 42 was 3. That 42. So 40, 41, and 42 were also all D. So again, if you see that pattern, you see on your bubble sheet that you've chosen D a lot, don't go with that letter for your guessing letter, right? Go with something else. Okay, very, very important. That's a very helpful hint that not many students employ, and it can save you on a question, as it did for me today. 42 was D, 43 was A, that's right. 44 was B, C, A, C. B, 44, B, C, A, C. 48 was B. Are we going to do it? 49 was A, 50 was D, 51 was D, and 60 was D, or 52 was D. Yeah, this was the one that I wasn't sure about. That was somewhat of a guess. I knew it wasn't these two because carbon, right, none of them contain carbon, and then type V, what did I see with type V? I didn't know what this was, so I didn't feel like it was that one. And so many of these kept saying carbon, right? Contain carbon. So many of the bigger ones, so I just felt like it wasn't going to be the carbon one. And then I got a little lucky. Oh, then one of them is type K. Why was it not one of them is type K? Possibly carbon rich. Maybe parents of some. Yeah, so this is parents of this, right? And there's another parents, right? Or something like this, possibly linked. I felt like, yeah, those big ones, that was why I did it. See, yeah, and possibly parents of some, that's why. Because this says possibly parents, maybe parents of this meteorite or whatever. So that's why I felt like those bigger ones had to do that. But that was a little lucky. I thought there were two of them are the same type. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what. I knew it wasn't. I was 95% sure it wasn't A and B, and then I didn't even realize, but I probably would have guessed C there. That was one of those where you kind of get lucky at the end. But in any case, guys, thumbs up if that all made sense. That we got 52 out of 52 on that one, which is awesome. We did not do that on the writing and language, so I missed 10 points on writing and language because of that. So if you watch the entirety of these October videos now, reading, right? Reading was equal to a 52 out of 52. Reading is independently scored of writing and language. So that would have been equivalent to a 400 because we didn't miss any. On writing and language, I unfortunately missed one, so I got 43 out of 44. Talking too much, I didn't get to one of the questions. So that was a 390, I think. And so that would have been a total of 790 for those two sections. So guys, again, if you're interested in that writing and language video and seeing that through, let me post that one so that you guys have access to it. Thumbs up if you don't subscribe to the channel. If you liked what you saw, please do subscribe to the channel. If you're interested in seeing some very, very premium content related to SAT reading videos, you guys can join the channel for $3 a month. It helps support the channel. It helps support our teachers and tutors and helps us make more of these videos. So if you're interested and you can't afford that $3 a month, you'll get a lot of these videos after a certain amount of time will end up being on the premium version. We leave them free for everybody for the first month or so, and then we kind of decide from there. So if you want full access to these videos forever, or all of these videos, you guys can check that out. But in any case, let me pull up this SAT writing and language, if you guys want to see that. October 2022. SAT writing and language. yeah, so again, guys, subscribe to the channel. Join if you can. If you want to check out that writing and language video, please do so. Again, pinned to the top of this message board, pinned to the top of the chat, and in the video description below is more information about our tutoring app, Star U, where all of the strategies that I just mentioned can be found, and they're found obviously where you're not rushing through them. You can take your time to read through those. So please download Star U. That's free to download, free to create a student account, and like I said, all the strategies are free to read about. So please make sure you guys do that. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Good luck on your next SAT. Good luck preparing. And again, if you're watching this video as a recording, please make sure that you comment below, and one of our teachers or tutors will make sure that we respond to that. Okay, guys? Have a great rest of your day. Wherever you are in the world, have a great weekend. Good luck on your next SAT, and we will see you guys soon. Thanks so much, guys. Chase with Star Tutors again, and we will see you soon.